how would you define or what is leadership for you?
So that's a great question. Thank you. And it's a great question because so it's Tuesday night here in in the on the west coast of the United States where I live, and I'm actually about to walk tomorrow morning into a 2-day leadership lab that I am
Wow.
delivering for our scaling mastermind. So we have a scaling mastermind where we help business owners understand how to scale their businesses. And of course, we have several pillars, several really topics and areas that we work on with them. And just tomorrow, our leadership lab is coming up. So it's been really, a few weeks of really kind of thinking about these questions. So what is leadership for me? Well, so I think, again, as we said, leadership is a very holistic experience to me. And while very often we tend to observe leadership as a way that a leader leads their team, I have experienced that leadership starts from within. It's actually a pretty internal experience initially. And it starts really with how you perceive yourself first. So it starts with all the beliefs, all the thought processes, all the internal conversations that you have about yourself, because those are then the trigger very often to the behavior that people see on the outside, right? So it starts on the inside. And again, it starts on the inside with how you perceive yourself, and then how you perceive others as well, which we create inside of us. Has nothing to do with how they behave very often. It's just like our own interpretation, our own perception. We filter it through, again, our beliefs. We filter it through, what we think about the world, about ourselves, about our company. And then, we create meaning out of it. So these are the first things really internally. And then it starts to actually show up externally in the way you show up as a leader, in the way you actually, you behave yourself. And lastly, actually, it's about how you lead your team. So I feel like how you lead your team is kind of the tip of the iceberg that we all see, but there is so much underneath, that so much work that leaders do on themselves in order to actually show up in that way, that most people are not, they don't see it, because they just don't have access to those moments where leaders actually kind of pull the curtains and share their internal work that is so important as well.
What would you say would be the top three problems that most leaders do face?
Wow, great question. So, well, a lot of data shows us that leaders right now, in corporations, leaders are facing, one of the problem is actually recruiting talent that can be developed into emerging leaders and into the leaders of tomorrow. There has definitely been a big change in terms of, kind of the dream used to be the secure, a spot in a great company, and it used to be to kind of climb that ladder. And I think that the last 2 years have kind of changed that for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that have learned that that ladder really didn't mean that much in their life when they were faced with fears and concerns about, their own kind of survival on some levels, right? Because we have all been pulled back into more of a survival mode. Maybe not really practically, but that's how our emotions have actually felt. And we have been like taken away from our communities, taken away from, the habits that were defining, who we were. We've been taken away from being able to kind of show up the way we were used to showing up. And so once we have been kind of, deprived from all this, stripped away, the core is what has been left over. And for a lot of people, it's been like, well, like, do I really want to do what I was doing before? Is that really worth it? Is that really all there is? And the result has been the last couple of years, a lot of data shows up that shows that less people are raising their hand for wanting to climb that ladder. And so the first thing is really, I feel, one of the challenges redefining leadership, redefining impact through leadership in our organization in a way that it inspires new young talent to apply for that, to fight for it, to desire it, to want to climb that ladder. That's the first thing. And the trickle effect is then that there is a problem with retaining, of course, the talent afterwards, even if we find it. How do we retain it? How don't we just develop it and then they leave? So those are very big problems. And I think that in the end it all goes back to really creating that culture and creating that belonging, because we know that when somebody feels that, when somebody is in a situation where they feel that safe space and that belonging, they are not actually even inspired, or don't have the desire to look for something else, to go out and look for other options. So it's really about creating that safe space where people feel like they feel heard, they feel understood, they feel valued, not despite the differences, but because of the differences, and therefore they can shine and bring their creativity and bring the innovation and bring the contribution that companies are looking for.
What do you believe is the important leadership capabilities and skills that leaders must have in this next normal to continue to lead effectively?
Yeah, so that's great. And I think that it goes down really to probably three really important things, which is, again, the ability to lead with authenticity. I mean, there has been a big change, and everything in our culture. I mean, it's not even just in business, but everything in our culture has led towards more authenticity. I mean, starting from social media, that has
Mhm.
given us a window inside of everybody's life that we didn't have you know 15 years ago. It wasn't there, and so we didn't know what our leader, our CEO, our CFO, etc., was doing in their personal time. Today we know, and that has changed the dynamics of how we perceive our leaders, what we expect from them, and the authenticity that we are requesting in order to really let them lead. So I think this is the first thing, like really being authentic, being committed to communication, to clarity, to transparency first. I think it's really important for leaders. Brené Brown, of course, does a lot of about talking about like vulnerability, and presenting and helping leaders understand how vulnerability is a strength, it's not a weakness, and it's really helping us in connecting with our team, connecting with everybody, with our market, with everybody for that matter, right?
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that are important, really, that commitment to authenticity, vulnerability, and transparency, because today our teams, our suppliers, our markets, etc., everybody is looking at us, is requesting that in order to create that trust, right? So that's one of the things that is important. The second thing, I think, that is all about resilience. We said, being agile, and really like being able to succeed in face of complexity, in face of adversity, in face of change. We are in a very fluid, kind of era, very, very fast changing time in history. And so as leaders, we need to be able to be resilient for ourselves, and as well develop that in our team, right? Create a team. In order for a team to be high performing today, it needs to be a resilient team, it needs to be an agile team, it needs to be a flexible team, because we can't just find one way to work and then kind of think that will be it. We need to be constantly open to changes, to adapting, and doing it fast. It's not even just about kind of adapting to change, but we need to adapt fast. That's part of what determines the success of a team today. Just like, again, we talked about March 2020, everything shut down. The teams that have been able to adapt the faster have been able to capitalize on big opportunities, because every time we have challenges, we have opportunities as well. But we need to
Exactly.
be able to actually, get them. So I think those are really the most important things, right? It's really important, that authenticity to lead, and that resilience to kind of come back from setbacks. But unfortunately, we are as well facing, a future where setbacks, changes, uncertainty, is kind of like, will probably be in our future. Scientists already tell us, climate change, possible pandemics, possible changes in the environment and the way we know it, will determine the fact that we need to adapt. We need to really kind of train that muscle of resilience in order not only to survive but to thrive in our life and of course in business as well.